Right. And this is like a super duper pleasure to interview you just for starters. I heard great things about you. I read a little of your book and we're going to get into that too. So, first of all, master fitness instructor and corporate wellness trainer in Hong Kong, of all the places, who co authored a phenomenal book entitled Dynamic Balance with emphasis on athletic training and modern Chinese medicine for optimal health and human performance. So, number one, what inspired you to get into fitness, and how did you quantify a need for fitness that allowed you to make master training a career?
Sure. Well, great question.
Thank you.
I guess I'll introduce myself. Hello, everyone. My name is Andy Chan, and as Tawanda said, I am based in Hong Kong, of all places.
Mhm.
I'll say my fitness story, it began 7 years ago. So 7 years ago, I wanted to become a professional soccer player here in Hong Kong,
Mhm.
and I was given the chance to go on a trial with a local soccer team. There was just one thing that really struck me, and it changed my career forever. And that was during one day when we're in practice. So in practice, usually we had to do some agility training. So I'm not sure if you have seen online, but basically you would set up cones and you see all these football players. You're working agility, right? Your
Right.
your uh, your ability to change directions and stuff. And back then, I was doing a lot of fitness training inside the gym. So I was bigger in size compared to my teammates.
Mhm.
And as we were doing those agility drills, I remember one day the coach came up to me. He was like, "Hey Andy, so when people turn, they just turn, but when you turn like a robot." And he was saying, so because I was quite stiff, right? I worked out my chest and my pecs, my back. So I was walking like a typical bodybuilder that you would see.
Right.
And yet, for me, that translated to that ultimately hindered my performance because it made me slower because I didn't know that there were so many facets of training uh, outside of just looking good or gaining muscle size. So afterwards, I was like, oh, okay, so I need to help those uh, people who are looking to become better athletes, and I need to share my experience, and therefore I went back to get my certifications, and so I became a certified personal trainer. And then I met this guy named Kevin Rushton, who's my boss at Optimum Performance Studio, where I mainly teach in Hong Kong.
Mhm.
And he nominated me to become a master trainer of a device called PowerPlate. And what that meant was that I had to fly out to Thailand. This was in 2005 or six to attend a 3-day conference. And in that, it changed my career again because I realized so PowerPlate is a US based company. Um, and they send over instructors from the US, and
Mhm.
these are top-notch instructors. And there's one thing that I learned, and that is that coaches in the US, because it is even more competitive in Hong Kong, so those who are successful, not only are they academically qualified, they're also great at what they do. So at that point, I knew I had to go back to school to get my master's. So I went back to school and got my master's in exercise science. So long story short, I think it's my soccer experience that gave me the need to switch career. And in terms of master trainer, the reason why I developed my career that way is because of great models that were shown to me in the past 4 or 5 years of what is possible in the fitness industry.
Wow. It must be very lucrative. Very lucrative. So, when did you realize that you wanted to write a book on athletic performance in TCM?
Sure. So this all started as part of my master's project. In one of the courses, we had to do some research, or we kind of pick a question that we're interested in, and we'll look online, we'll look into different scientific journals, into more about the topic.
Mhm.
And my topic was about cubbing. So I'm not sure if you have seen, but sometimes if you go online, you see athletes, they have these purple dots
Right.
on them, right? And I was like, oh yeah, it'll be fun to know more about it because that is a TSAM practice that has been around for thousands of years. And
Mhm.
you see athletes like Michael Phelps, you see LeBron James, you see different athletes utilizing this method. So it's like,
Right.
it'll be cool to kind of look into the efficacy or how whether it actually works. So as I look online, I realized that there are two distinct patterns. If I go onto a more Western website, for example, an exercise science website, they'll kind of go at it from a soft tissue perspective. So more of a muscle, just basically what are you doing to the properties of the soft tissue and the muscle of the skin or under the skin. Okay, and then if you go on to the Chinese medicine perspective, it all became, for lack of a better word, very mystical. And that I even if as someone who grew up in Hong Kong, I I just find it. I don't want to offend anyone, but for me it was a bit too weird. I think the way that it was brought, because they talk about chi as if it's some type of mystical force, as you see in the movies, and so at that point I was like, okay, I think there is an opportunity here. So I looked online, I looked on Amazon, and at that point, if you search Chinese medicine, it's always cookbooks because people only know about the herbs and stuff. So I saw the need, and as part of my final project of my master's, I wrote a book proposal. And after I got done with my master's, I got connected with actually, believe it or not, someone from my church group, and she's a Chinese medicine practitioner. I was like, okay, we can do a collaboration here, and we can demystify and kind of deconstruct this esoteric and ancient language using simple, down-to-earth terminologies. And that's what this book is ultimately aimed to achieve, and that is to break down all these foreign language, if you will, so that athletes can kind of utilize this philosophy to help their recovery and therefore help their athletic performance.
Okay, and I'm glad you said that. So am I pronouncing this right? Amy Acuff?
Yeah, Amy, I think Acuff.
Acuff. Okay, so Amy Acuff, 5-time Olympian, praises the book by saying dynamic balance demystifies the practical wisdom of traditional Chinese medicine applied to training and recovery. She also says that athletes can reach greater longevity and higher performance with the book. So, and who else can benefit? Like normal people like me, can we benefit from the book?
I think so, because ultimately, I think one thing that we emphasize in the book is that we can make a lot of different lifestyle choices that can contribute to better health and fitness performance. And one thing right off the bat that I want to point out is nowadays a lot of people know that health and wellness, for example, is not just what you do inside the gym. It's how you sleep, how you eat, and how you manage your emotions. And I'll say if the average person like you and me can take care of all the variables outside the gym, then we can ensure that what we do inside the gym is actually helping our performance. So I'll say, that there are plenty of lifestyle strategies inside.
It is, and I'm glad you said that. So chapter 4.3. So the book is extremely thoughtful, y'all. Just for reference, very thoughtful, from just your formation to your peace and tranquility. It's just so many aspects of this book. And one of the things is emotional imbalance. How does that correlate with fitness?
Sure. Emotional. We all know mental health is such a big topic, and what we say inside the book is just kind of a tip of the iceberg. But it's important for us to raise awareness. I think certainly for those of us who live in a city, I think we're grinding every day, right? And we're always rushing from one thing to the other, and if we are constantly in that sympathetic state, it affects our digestion, and if it affects our digestion, it affects our performance, because if we don't digest what we eat well, then it's going to impact what we do on the field.
Right.
And also, we know that a lot of people have a hard time relaxing at night because we're in that sympathetic state, because they're always so anxious, and maybe they just cannot relax the mind, and that affects the sleep. And if the sleep is impacted, then again we do not recover.
That's right.
So so in the mental side of things, our book, we just want to focus on ways to calm the nervous system down, because we just assume more people struggle with cooling down than actually amping up, because most of us, particularly in the fitness industry, I know so many people, they do 4 or 5 coffees a day, just kind of to get them going. Right? Yeah, exactly, exactly. Like, oh, perfect.
Yes.
So, so I think we one thing we do emphasize in the book is that there is nothing wrong with amping up the nervous system and to kind of wake yourself up a little bit, but we also have to let it come back down, and that's ultimately what our book is about.
I love that. So, and then what surprised you the most during the writing process of this book? Although you're a co-author, you had a big hand in it.
Sure. I would say I was the main author, and everything I did, I wanted to check with Stella to make sure that it is actually TCM, right? Because you don't want to make a mistake and step on anyone's toes. The biggest mistake I'll say is actually translating the terms. I would say, because with languages, a lot of times you kind of just intuitively understand when you're there. Like a lot of the idioms in the US, right? When it translates to Chinese, it translates to nothing, because it's just kind of the side topic. Like this past week, there was this news translated, and there was this American guy who was saying, "Hey stranger," in a flirty way, right? In a flirty way. So yeah, "Hey stranger." They was like, "Oh, hey stranger, we haven't talked for a long time." This was a scandal. Someone cheated on their husband, and then it was saying the mistress. Yeah, I got leaked. Yeah, exactly. It was like, hey stranger," and then it got translated to Chinese, right?
Right.
And people were like, "No, they're saying he's a stranger, so that means they haven't seen each other in a while." And everyone else was like, "No, in English, when you say stranger, that's not what you mean. That means that you're flirting." But anyways, point being that when you translate languages, it's hard to get the true meaning unless if you're actually in the culture. And so I think the biggest challenge is to actually explain concepts in kind of a black and white manner. Because a lot of concepts in Chinese medicine, even if you look in Chinese, it is explained through metaphors.
Right. So,
which is weird.
even it's weird, but that's how we receive that information. Everybody's hardwired differently to receive that type of information. So you do animal flow and fitness, like you write about that a lot, if that's the correct terminology for stuff that you wrote about. So how do you use those techniques in the book?
Sure. I think animal fitness has become it has taken over the fitness world thanks to animal flow. The one that we mentioned is slightly different because it was proposed 4,000 years ago, so it was 4,000 years before animal flow was created. But actually, if you look into cultures around the world, there are different animal movements. It's just part of human culture for thousands of years. The one that we propose in the book is written by the most famous TCM physician ever, and we really wanted to highlight the fact that people knew that we should search for elegant movement, thousands of years ago. I think that's the main point that we want to highlight. And I do want to point out that, in my opinion, it's perfectly fine if people practice yoga, people practice animal flow, as long as it is movements that is smooth. Because in the book, we also mentioned that people have been dancing for thousands of years, and I joke all the time when I spent 10 years in the U.S. When I first got to the U.S., the song "Crank It" was really popular, and in the U.S., people would just dance, especially my African American friends. They would just dance in the dorm, and I was awkward because our coach is just not like that, right? We play music, but it's just not so expressive. And I remember they would just like go out and they would do stuff, and I just cannot. And but things like dances, we intuitively search for elegant movement. When you see good dancers, you realize it right away. And to me, the point of our 5 animal movement practice, or animal flow, or yoga, or dance, actually is all predicated on the same same important element that we all look for. And so yeah, that will be the most important part when it comes to our five animal movement practice.
Okay. So the thing about it is you don't do much isolated muscle training. Can you elaborate on your rationale behind the training philosophy that you don't do that? It's body move, like eloquent body movements, like you said.
Yeah. I think unless if a muscle is severely weak, for example, we all know that sometimes through an injury or through poor posture, there are certain muscles that are severely weak. But if that's not the case, then I think if you work muscles in isolation, that is definitely not going to help the way you move.
Right.
Example being, let's say today, do you play any sports?
No.
Okay, so
I do work out a lot though. I exercise a whole lot.
Okay. So let's take basketball for example. We all have played basketball or at least tried. When you shoot a basketball, do you think about which muscles you're using?
If I played sports,
yeah.
Basketball,
No, because if you shoot the basketball, you just think about shooting the ball,
right?
And you don't actually think about, okay, I first have to use your legs and then transfer power through my core, and I have to use my arms and my triceps, and I shoot, flicking the wrist. You don't do that. You just kind of go at it. And yet, if you think about the fitness industry, traditionally what it has done is, okay, today I'm going to work my pecs, so I'm going to really feel my pecs nice and slow. And if I work my back, I'm going to pull and I'm going to work it nice and slow. And that's just not very. That's counterintuitive to what we do on the field, because it doesn't matter if I'm playing basketball, if I'm playing tennis, when I'm serving the ball, I don't really think about which muscle I'm using.
Right.
And if you look at sports, it doesn't matter which sport you're playing, the best athletes are the ones that can move the best. I mean, if you look at LeBron James, he's 36 years old. I was watching his highlights the other day, and man, he's still flying. And so therefore, that's why I say that my training philosophy is predicated on the fact that we have to be better movers, because when we can move well, where we can take better control of our body, then we can actually do those moves that we want it to perform. So that's kind of why I generally do not do isolated muscle training.
Okay, fair enough.
Yeah.
So you use the word harmony quite a lot in the book when it comes to diet, emotions, and movement. And you said that harmony is more fitting than balance. Can you tell us more of why that is?
Yeah. When we open the textbook, a lot of times now on nutrition, it would tell us to eat a balanced diet. And one thing that we want to point out is, if you look at part 2 of the book, there is a constitution questionnaire, because in TCM they believe that there are different body types, and our diets should be determined by our body type, by our energy, because it's like when you are in different seasons, like it might be super cold outside, and then you'd like to have some hot chocolate or ginger tea or whatever. And when it's super hot outside, you might want to have some watermelon or something, some ice lemonade or something. Point being, depending on how the body feel, TCM tells us that we want to eat different things.
Right.
So reason why we avoid balanced diet, for example, is because in a balanced diet, you just kind of assume that you eat the same things every day, same portions. Everything is constant and set. Sure, I mean if you look at different macronutrients, maybe your protein, your carbohydrate, and fat consumption has to be of a certain amount, but the actual food, it kind of varies depending on your body's needs. So therefore, we think harmony is more fitting, because if you think about an orchestra, for music to be playing well, you've got different musicians playing together. But you won't have the same amount, you won't have the equal amount, or you won't have the same amount of pianists versus violin players, right? Because you have one piano player and a lot more violinists. And so therefore, I think when it comes to diet, emotions, and movement, the reason why we use the word harmony is because we believe that sometimes certain parts needs to be louder, certain
Mm.
parts needs to be quieter, and so we just think that that's a better fitting word than balance.
So is this technique pretty common where you are in Tokyo, where you are? Or like say for instance, you have someone who's pretty into fitness but scared to try new things. How would you convince a new person who's scared, like, okay, can I do that? Can I sit like that? Can I stretch like that? How do you do that?
Sure. To a new person in fitness, I would say that currently, well, at this, I can be honest, at this stage of my career, I think when people come to me, I don't really need to convince them because I guess
They
it is
already
quite,
know.
they know. But if it's 2 years ago,
Mm-hmm.
I would say it is quite difficult because, all the stuff that I just told you,
Mm-hmm.
it's quite, I don't want to say mind blowing, but it's something that people haven't heard of in
Right.
traditional
It's
fitness world,
new.
right? It's like, yeah, yeah, yeah. It's, and so I would explain to them and they'd be like, okay, better movement. So what does that actually mean, right?
Right.
Because if I am to deliver a sales pitch, for example, because ultimately you have to get people to do sessions. It's like, oh, okay, we'll have to. As a consumer, they would much rather hear, okay, I'm gonna work on different parts of the body. I'll sculpt your body so they have a better looking butt,
Right.
and yada yada yada, right? But if someone just tells them, no, I want you to move better so that you can have more elegant movements,
Right.
and it's cool, but I would say it's at the same time not very punchy, right? It's like, okay,
Right.
so what does that
It's
actually do?
different.
Yeah, yeah,
Very
yeah.
different.
So, but I would sometimes just ask them to do 2 to 3 sessions,
Mm-hmm.
because after they kind of go through the movements,
Mm-hmm.
they'll find that what I'm saying, it makes intuitive sense.
Okay.
Yeah, yeah. So instead of them feeling tight, usually the biggest, the most common feedback I get after our sessions, after let's say 20, is that, oh, I'm not as stiff as I once was.
Mhm.
And that to me now, that's music to my ear because I,
Right.
certainly in Hong Kong, a lot of people
How did I
they
say
have
no,
body
I'm
stiff.
so sorry.
Yeah, no, no, it's no worries, no worries. No worries, no worries. Um, yeah, I think stiffness is definitely no good. So I would say, yeah, that's how I do it. Just try it.
You know what I think is very unique because you have your traditional trainers who think you're supposed to hurt after a workout, and you're like, no, 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 that's not what you're supposed to feel. You're supposed to be relaxed. You're supposed to feel this way. So your method has been proven, like with all the praises in the book, correct?
It is, and I think this no pain no gain mentality is slowly fading away. It really is because you've got all these technology now to monitor recovery,
Mm-hmm.
and the whole point of our book is just to bring another aspect to that world because nowadays you see there's so many different devices in the wellness world. Right? You've got
Right.
compression pants, you've got massage guns, and you've got obviously those cupping, you've got those scraping, so many different things. But you're right, you're right. It is, in where I am in Hong Kong, where most coaches are still kind of in that bodybuilding zone.
Mm-hmm.
I am different, but
Right.
hopefully not weird, right?
It's
Different, but
not
not weird.
weird. It's
Hopefully, yeah, yeah,
intriguing. Like, because you focus on fitness and recovery, and that's very different. You know what I mean? Versus,
yeah,
okay, you got to do this, you got to do that. If you want to bulk up, if you don't feel the pain, it's not working, which is what we normally hear, and then you can't
yeah,
walk the next day.
yeah, yeah. Exactly, exactly, exactly. And I think it is actually, just to piggyback on that point, it is why I get so many opportunities as well in the fitness world. If I'm to be honest with you, I
Mm-hmm.
think, this is a little bit about career. I think sometimes when people get into the fitness industry,
Mm-hmm.
they have this archetype or they have this model of fitness instructor that they think, and that is, I have to be super extroverted, I have to be super outgoing, and hey, how are you? And they have to be a coach that's super strict. But what I realized was that if you focus on the recovery and if you focus on the listening and actually to participate in someone's fitness journey,
Mm-hmm.
people do appreciate it a lot more rather than, unless if some people are born being an extrovert, and they're just a people person, and you can tell when someone's genuine or not. Point being, and so if but for most people, if they just have someone who are genuine and they're passionate yet not super extroverted, there, I think people would receive it a lot better. And certainly in my case, when I got the balance right between this strenuous workout and recovery, and when I got a balance right between talking and listening, I think that really elevated my career.
I think so. I mean, you got my attention.
Thank you.
So, give me a few suggestions of the types of foods you should eat that goes into alignment with dynamic balance.
Sure. I'm gonna give a little plug to my book. I think the best way to approach this is to figure out what your body constitution is. So in our book, we outline 8 different body types, and you do that through a questionnaire. And that's going to give you a basic idea of, according to the TCM philosophy, what's your body type. And from there, you can kind of look to the appendix where there are different foods suggested for your current body state. But I'll say the overarching principle is that we encourage people to eat local foods, meaning you should go into your local farms, obviously organic, and support there. Because one thing that we suggest is that there are fruits and vegetables that's in our area, and that's there for a reason. So nature wanted us to eat those food, and this is actually not only TCM. It's been talked about in the whole world, and sometimes because of globalization, fortunately and unfortunately, I might be eating something in Colombia, some fruits from Colombia. And Hong Kong and Colombia, it's just different soil, different climate, different everything. And so we think that a good place to start is to eat fruits and as much food that are grown locally as possible. I think that would be a good start, because then you never eat the wrong foods.
That's right. So do you suggest veganism? Is that what you're talking about when you say organic?
Well, yeah. Well, yes, when it comes to vegetables, and I think in TCM there's certainly nothing wrong with eating meat, but obviously getting meat that are grown locally is a bit more challenging. But now when I buy chicken, for example, I try to buy local chicken, just me, and as much as possible, I want to eat things that are as close to me. But I think more importantly, it's all about organic, if possible, and eat foods that are grown locally. And why does someone goes vegan or not? There's no problem at all in TCM. I just want to point that out, because there are plenty of vegans in throughout the Chinese history.
So with that, with TCM, in what way would it affect you? Like, if from going meat to veganism, is there a difference with how you recover?
I think so. Although I would say that in general, most TCM practitioners that I go to would not advocate going vegan, but I just the people I know, right? So I know I'm kind of scared going to this topic. I'm not vegan, right? I just say my vegetables I eat meat as well, because the reason why I say it is that the TCM philosophy, they encourage people eating everything.
Okay.
Right, they encourage people eating everything, the intestines, the different things within the cow as well, and so yeah. So I think they say, because of controversies, like in the first chapter of a book, TCM has gone to different controversies because people have to use these like tiger meat or lion meat, just something obscure, something weird in TCM, but multiple professors have jumped out and say that they could be replicated with herbs, and so I think yes, of course, if you do go vegan, there will be a change in the body, but it is manageable.
So my last question, and then we're gonna get off of veganism, okay? We don't even want to.
Okay, yes, please.
So,
never know who's listening.
That part. So where can viewers find the book. I mean, like I said, the book is very thoughtful. It's not your traditional, like, okay, we're going to go from page 1 to page 50 and you're going to get some photos and blah, blah, blah. No, it's very thoughtful where you took the time out to describe the different scenarios from health, wellness, and spiritual perspective. So I find that very unique, that most trainers would not do.
Thank you. Yes, thank you.
You're welcome. So where can viewers first buy the book, follow you? Like, do you host virtual training? Like, how are those sessions offered?
Yeah. So first of all, you can find me on Instagram, Tsz Chiu Chan, my Chinese name. I guess we'll put that in the link. Put that in the link in the description somewhere. But it's my Chinese name, so TSZChiuChan. I also have a website, tchu.com, which is my Chinese name. And right now, I do corporate webinars. So I'm hosting a few webinars for some universities in the US. And I don't do online training at the moment, but we're working on it. So right now, I think webinars is probably the most feasible option just because of the geographic location and travel restrictions. But in the future, who knows, right? Who knows? Because I think, yeah, in the long-term future, obviously, it'll be nice if we can organize some courses or some education content or whatever. But right now, I think we just need to focus on getting the message out there because it is already quite unique.
It's extremely unique because I'm like, oh, okay, so they're covering this, that, and this. So this trainer didn't do all this, so I want some money back, okay? But
yeah, you tell them.
So how long has the book been out? I think I don't know that time frame.
Yeah, the book is not out yet. So you are actually, I would say you might be the first one who's read so much into the book. I'm pleasantly surprised and I'm touched really, and that you've read so much of the book already. Thank you so much. Our book will be launched on January 4th, 2022. Yay! Yes. And you definitely give me your address. I'll have to send you a copy, a physical copy. Because right now you have a PDF. Yeah, you have the PDF version, I think, right?
Yes. And I'm like, oh man, this book is like a big deal. I mean, it just is definitely a game changer, like for people who battle with certain ailments that need a different way of looking at fitness, just a different lens. And I think you offered that unique perspective, like, hey, maybe this doesn't work for you, but if you do this may work for you. You, like you said, you have 8 different body types. When we decide to lose weight, look at a person and say, hey, we want that body. And then if we can't get that body, we quit. So you're like, no, this is not the right way to look at it. Let's identify your body type. Let's identify all of these different things about you, especially mentally, to see where you are. And then we go from there. So I like that you do that. So this is a treat that the book is not even out. So I'm like, I'm a first. Okay.
Yeah. I'm surprised by your professionalism, really. I'm impressed.
Yay.
And also, I think not only, just to kind of piggyback on the points, I think it's not only those who are suffering with ailments who should look into it, but rather I think, we live in an age where there's just so much information out there. And I think for any coaches or any fitness enthusiasts, it's always good to get a different perspective,
right?
Because just so you can relate better. You never know who's going to walk into the door, and if you cannot relate with the person you're working with, then you're not going to have a very successful career in terms of fitness wise.
That's right.
And certainly any job really. So I think for coaches especially, it's good to get another perspective, and that way they can kind of remain at the forefront so that they know what's out there.
That's right. I love it. So thank you so much for your time. Now you can have that coffee. I don't know.
yeah, exactly. I do have one coffee a day, one only. I limit myself.
Oh, one coffee. Just half a cup then. Half a cup before your next client. So thank you so
Yeah.
much. And I appreciate your time and energy and just overall your expertise, definitely on fitness. You know how we make those new goals, new year, new you goals. So this is very huge, in my opinion, going into the new year with a different fitness perspective. So thank you so much for that.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Bye.
Bye bye.